Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at Octopus Electric Vehicles today to chat you through the government changes in pricing of the grants that is available to help you buy or to lease an electric vehicle. On the call with me today is Ollie. You may or may not see his name in the corner. He is not so secret a squirrel today. And what he should be doing is either through the chat panel I have in front of me or through WhatsApp if something goes slightly wrong, he should be making sure that any questions that come up through what you're saying, that you're popping into the chat panel, which should be on your right, so over here, but I may or may not be mirrored, so that might be the wrong place. But on your right of the screen, you should be able to pop in a chat panel there. If you're on your phone or something else, you should be able to tap it at the top. Really today, what we're going to do is have a brief look at the changes that have happened in the grant structure, why they maybe hypothesize a little bit about why they may have changed, and also have a look at what happens if you're already in the chain, if you're already in the process of looking at an electric car, how does it affect you? I've also got the list of cars that are available, and I think it's really quite interesting to have a quick chat about what cars they are. We won't go into too much detail around that, but we will point out that it's not just you're no longer able to get a long range car. You are, but you just have to have a wee think about what kind of car you're looking to get. What we'll do is we'll get kicked off and straight in. As I said, any questions that do come up, please pop them in that chat panel. If you are in the process of looking at a car, thank you so much for joining us. There are more things that we talk about other than just grant changes and things like that. We do have workshops that cover a whole vast array of subjects around electric vehicles. But today we're going to talk about that in particular. I think why we feel that we should talk about them is because we want to be clear, transparent, and we want to be sustainable. We want to make sure that when we're looking at buying an electric vehicle, you are making an informed decision. That's what Octopus has always been about, is being able to give you the details that allow you to make an informed decision about what's going on. And that all stems back from when Fiona, our CEO, went to go and buy an electric vehicle. She was told it would take 38 hours to charge. She couldn't use her gross salary to pay for it. And Fiona, lots of other mums have bought this diesel SUV. And we really saw that we were lacking the availability to, or the world at this point was lacking the availability to give unbiased opinions of electric vehicles and help people make that move, because the way that cars have been sold for the past 100 years doesn't really help us. So that's why we exist. Primarily, we are Octopus Electric Vehicles is a leasing business, is a leasing house, which gets you a car, a charger, and a renewable energy tariff, all under one roof, to make the switch to electric as easy and as seamless as possible. The way it works is that we make sure we get you the right solution. We like to call it the complete solution with one of our team. And then we pass you on to the ops team, who will make sure that the car arrives after the charger and the renewable energy tariff are in place to allow you to take access to that straight away. If I check my watch through this live Q&A, it is not because I am wondering whether my dinner is ready. Rest assured that is still in the fridge. It's that I'm concerned that Ollie has maybe dropped me a text and I have missed a question. So please bear with us on that, just as obviously we're operating in different locations at the moment with all the restrictions in place. So as I said, we're going to cover the grant changes of 2021 and what's happened. But initially, what we're going to do is go back and look at the government doesn't have, this isn't unprecedented. The government has done this previously, and it's done it fairly regularly. In 2014, when a while ago, there was quite a big grant. There was between £6,500 and £6,000, and then the government reduced it to £5,000. So any EV car had £5,000 paid for by the government. I think it's really important as we go through this, as we look at things like residual values, as we look at leasing, and why leasing is so crucial to the future of getting as many electric vehicles onto the road as possible, because we see it as one of the greatest ways of making customers or letting customers see that a renewable future is possible. An electric car seems to be one of two things. It's either completing the set, you've got solar panels on your roof already, you've moved to a renewable energy tariff, you've got an air source heat pump, you've got batteries at your home. You just want that final thing to tick off and then you're all good. That's some people's experience. And then for a lot of others, and especially from my time at Tesla and from all the other stuff that I've done, it can be a gateway into understanding what a renewable future could be like or what it could feel like. So we want to make you have a whole understanding of what's going on and why leasing is so important. And because of that, it would be wrong to turn around and tell you that the government, that electric cars used to be £5,000 cheaper. It was that the government paid for that. So you wouldn't pay for it, but the government would pay for that. And that would allow you to take less of a hit, so to say, on buying that electric car. Now, back in 2014, the whole idea was to get as many people into electric cars as possible. There wasn't a great plethora of electric vehicles as we find now. And that fades fairly the same. And in 2018, we didn't see a change, but in 2018-19, we saw that reduced over time to £3,500 paid for by the government towards a car. So what would happen is, again, the exact same system was in place. The government would pay £3,500 towards a car for you. So if you were leasing a car, that would drop how much you were paying a month, because essentially the car was £3,500 less, but it wasn't that car was cheaper. So the car was still being priced by the manufacturer at a price, and then the government was paying for it. So the manufacturer still received that money from the government. So essentially it's taxpayer money. And we saw another change last year as the government decided to change the way that they saw that as well. And what they did was they moved from anything under £50,000 had £3,000 paid for it by the government. So things like Tesla Model 3, Polestar 2, they're priced at certain prices and used to get that £3,000. One car that used to jump in between was that Tesla Model 3 Performance. That Model 3 Performance looks like used to look like it was a whole load more expensive than the other cars. It wasn't that the car was more expensive. It was that it didn't qualify for this grant from the government. And again, the government has ratcheted again in the opposite direction, and they've moved it down again. And they moved it down this time, or on Thursday last week. Now, how does that look for 2021? So what that looks like is that any car under £35,000 now has £2,500 paid for it by the government. Now, that moves the goalposts quite a lot in terms of the cars that we have on offer and other people offer. It also changes the way that we see the grant. Now, it would be easy to say that this seems strange by the government, and it would be easy to turn around and say that we're really disappointed by it. However, there's sort of two bits to that, I think. One, yes, we think that allowing as many people to get into electric cars as possible is super important, and actually allowing them to be able to access cars with the government being able to fund some of that is amazing. But at the same time, we understand that there was a set amount of money. So there's always been a set amount of money by the government that the government and OZEV, formerly OLEV, said they had ring fenced. And I think a lot of people think that the government are rolling back on that. And I think potentially they're really not, in as much as what they're actually doing is that they're extending that grant, or they're extending the amount of money they have to cover different customers, to cover different people. And I think that's because very much so, if you'd been looking at a car under £50,000, you could have gone out and bought a Tesla Model 3. My mum, for example, wouldn't be able to go out and afford to get a Tesla Model 3. She'd be having to look at a Renault Zoe, a Honda E, MG ZS, and there'll be more and more people like my mother. And I think we can maybe take some comfort in the idea that actually, longer term, we will see this £2,500 spread across more cars of that nature for more people. Because if there's a set amount of money, if we reduce the amount we pay for everybody, and we reduce it to below a certain amount, then we can see that money that's ring fenced go on more cars, making it fairer in the long run. And actually, I think in the past, having that attitude would have been wrong, because we needed people to start that journey of making that move to electric, to start making those decisions to make that move. But now we're seeing more and more people make that move every single day. And as they do, it makes a huge difference to us at Octopus and also to the world in general, as we realize that we can talk a little bit less about how they impact the environment, but actually, how do you benefit from one? And how do we make sure that you're getting the right car? And that's long-term what we're now looking to do. Now, there are some cars that it does affect. There are some cars that it doesn't affect. So if you are a potential customer, what that means is that anybody that's been looking at a car or just starting to look at electric vehicles, or maybe has looked at them for a wee while and is now thinking about maybe getting some quotes or getting in touch with a manufacturer, what does it mean for you? Well, if you are looking at anything over £50,000, so if you are lucky enough to be looking at a Jag I-Pace or a Taycan, for example, a Porsche, guess what? Nothing has changed for you. You're absolutely fine. You are not in any real position that's different. If you're looking at anything between £35,000 and £50,000, there's a significant change. There's £3,000 that will no longer be available to you from the government. So it's not money that you get, it is money that gets paid to the manufacturer. But if you've been looking at a Tesla Model 3, if you've been looking at a Polestar, for example, then there will be some changing in that pricing structure, which you need to go and have a look at. And actually, over the course of 3-4 years, it can be enough to make you have a wee think. It can be enough to look at, but again, that is spread out over the course of the period. The thing to really point out with this before we go into anything else is that this doesn't change residual values, because this was paid for by the government, which is why I was using that language earlier. This money was paid for by the government, not that the cars cost less. So it's not that the residual values move. The residual values stay exactly where they are, because the data that provides those residual values comes from the on-the-road figure, or the figure that the car costs before that grant, before that money is paid for by the government. So therefore, you can see some significant changes in that pricing. If you are looking at a car under £35,000, you're looking at a £500 difference over the course of 4 years. So in that sense, residual values, again, don't change, but you're only seeing a £500 difference. So in that sense, if you're looking at a Seat Me, or if you're looking at a Renault Zoe, or if you're looking at a Honda E, there shouldn't be as much of a change. And that's only to reassure you that you may have to have a look at the pricing may be different from what you could have had, but it's not going to be as significant as you thought. We have a couple more slides regarding customers themselves, and then we'll really open it up to questions. Ollie, I don't know if you can see or anything, but I haven't seen anything come through on my watch or on Zoom just yet. So if there's anything that has come through, please do let me know. For quoted customers, so these are for customers that have received a quote but haven't signed it. You will need to get a new quote. The government made this change really quite quickly, we could have been expecting it. We could have not been expecting it, depending on how you look at it. But it's not that we knew about this for 2 months or that we knew there was going to be a change. The government just announced it and changed it, and therefore those quotes need to be redone for you. If you've not signed a quote, it doesn't really count anymore because there's been a material change in the costing of that car. So we would need you to get new quotes from the people that you got the quotes from, which is hopefully the right people to contact. What you then have is you have people that have signed quotes. So people that have already signed quote customers. Again, for both quoted customers and signed quoted customers, the people that I'm really wanting to speak to are Tesla, Polestar, Hyundai Kona, the bigger battery, and the Kia e-Niro, the bigger battery. Some other cars are affected, but they're not ones that we see everybody jumping on to have a look at. So please do let us know if that's the case. Those are the cars that we know tend to get lots of people like those cars and get a lot of quotes on them. For signed quote customers, we should be reaching out to you. We should have already reached out to you, or we'll be reaching out to you either through the person that helped you choose the right car for you in making sure that the solution was right, or the operations team who make sure that the car arrives on your driveway. They should also be reaching out to you to make you aware of what your next steps are. There can be a lot in the air depending on where your car is. Is it in the country? Is it pre-registered? Is it not pre-registered? A whole load of things around that we just need to be really careful of. But we need to do that on a one-to-one basis, because we don't want to say something on here that might not apply to everybody, and then that get really confusing if somebody's watching this in a week's time, for example. So if you have signed a quote and you're watching this live and you haven't heard from us, please do let Ollie or I know in the chat, and we'll get that sorted. Possibly not right now, but we will get that sorted for you, for somebody to reach out to you. But otherwise, rest assured, you've either been contacted or somebody will be in touch with you to get that sorted. Now, something that I feel really passionate about is getting as many people into EVs as possible and as smoothly as possible as well. And in that sense, what I really hope to help with is sort of understanding the kind of cars that you could still make a move into and have help from the government to do that. Now, every single car that we offer at Octopus still comes with those amazing government incentives regarding benefit in kind, regarding ULEZ zones, regarding congestion charge. Now, I know that sounds like I'm fairly London-centric when I'm talking about ULEZ and congestion. ULEZs will be propping up all across the UK. So you can hopefully tell from my accent that I was not London born and bred. And therefore, as much as I am talking about ULEZ as an amazing incentive for Londoners right now, that will grow and grow and grow. When I talk about ULEZ, I mean ultra low emission zones, where you are charged for bringing anything that isn't electric into a city centre. Bath has just announced theirs, and we have a blog on that. Fiona, our CEO, spoke about that as well. But we see them propping up all across the country. Glasgow, Edinburgh, Dundee, Aberdeen in Scotland have them, or they've started with public transport, but a little bit differently, but they will be moving to electric vehicles. We know places like Birmingham, Manchester, other places are both in discussions to have them in certain areas and have confirmed others in other locations as well. It's all about where there are high instances of inner city air pollution. So less CO2 and much more sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide, which are horrible gases that we really don't want to be breathing in. So all of those benefits still exist for every single car that we offer through either SALSAC, through salary sacrifice. Sorry, I shouldn't use that term SALSAC, but through salary sacrifice, or through business contract hire. You still have all of those beneficial rates as well, regarding benefit in kind rates, regarding how you pay for the car as well, not paying for it out of your salary. But what you'll also find is that you've also got a whole load of cars under that £35,000 that can be used. The Skoda Enyaq, there's a couple of Skoda Enyaqs in there, and that's actually a really exciting car because it does sort of talk about a future of promising vehicles that everybody could drive. And that was what I was meaning about the cars with that longer range. That Skoda Enyaq does have a longer range. This isn't about reducing us to having shorter range vehicles. It is much more about allowing us to not us, but I think this is much more about the government expanding that, allowing that grant to cover a whole load more. I'm hearing that a couple more questions are coming in. I'm seeing that one from Ollie here is, do you think it will encourage EV manufacturers to reduce price to help people to buy? I think that's a brilliant question to ask. I think that is there are some electric car manufacturers out there that absolutely. Now, whether that will happen in the short term or whether it shifts their look or that shifts their maybe their spotlight to look at how they could produce a cheaper car. I think that could be it here. Will Tesla, being the big word in EVs, will Tesla look to how they can do it? Well, they've already announced that there will be a $25,000 or euro car. We don't know obviously how much that will cost in the UK, but they have announced that that will be happening over the next 3 years. So I think they're already on that path. You will be able to see that some ID3s still count for your grant. However, will companies like VW look to it? I think what it might do is it might mean that there is an understanding that this is what the government want, that the government wants to stop concentrating on that higher end of the market and wants to reward people for looking at that everyday car, like that car that you take everybody to school in, or that car that you go to the shops in, rather than the higher end of the market, which certain people can get into and other people can't. I think it benefits people like Honda. I think it benefits people like MG. I think it benefits people like Renault, and actually creates a wider gap. Now, that's something that we haven't really spoken about or thought about, but actually thinking about it now, it creates a wider gap between the plus £35,000 cars and the sub £35,000 cars. So actually it looks more, it is more cost effective for a lot of people to look at a smaller car, and actually that will help free up some congestion as well on our streets as well. It will also mean that charging is a little bit faster because the batteries are a little bit smaller as well. As always, if there are any more questions, Ollie, please let me know. I can't see any more coming in right now, but I think that was a really good question about encouraging manufacturers to make slightly more cost-effective vehicles. I think that's where the world is going anyway. I think we'll see it as time goes on. Anyway, I see that that's the way that the world will go. I think we'll see that more and more manufacturers will be looking at that mass market, that yeah, the cars that replace the things like the Fiat 500s that we already know are coming, the Mini Cooper that we already know is there, the Toyota Yaris. The only reason I say that is that it was the best-selling car for last quarter in the UK, first time Toyota have ever achieved that. I think those are the kinds of cars, like the Fiesta and the Yaris are the two best-selling hatches in the UK, and I don't think there's any. And the Fiesta is the best-selling car of all time in the UK. If you want to go out and have a car that competes with the Fiesta in terms of fit, finish, and not be a luxury small car, i.e. the Honda E, you would struggle right now to find somebody that's something that's quite as tough or as rough and ready as the Fiesta. That's not me taking away from how the Fiesta is built. In fact, it's the exact opposite. But it's a car for a specific job, and it is for teenagers right the way through to old age pensioners there are so many people that the Fiesta fits for. And I think actually that's where electric car, or where manufacturers should be targeting next. And they've been really scared to, because it's a hard nut to crack, because you need to build them en masse. We can see that Vauxhall have taken that leap. Peugeot have taken that leap as well in allowing the Corsa and the 208 to become fully electric. And that's where this grant will allow more of those to have grants on them longer term, if they keep that money ring fenced, which I think is really important. As always, ask us any questions. Please share this video if you have people that have missed it or need to learn more. If there is anything else, please do reach out to us. We're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn. You can absolutely reach out to us there, ask us some more questions, or join any of our workshops we have running. The other thing we do have is, if you check out our Eventbrite, which we can link, or if you Google, we are running a watch along for Extreme E, which launches next weekend on Easter Sunday. We'll have some expert speakers talking about electrification, about motorsport as well. And it's a nice way, if you've never experienced racing or electric motorsport, or if this is the first time you've wanted to find out about electric cars, that should be a nice, easy way, without you having to think about, what am I going to use my car for? It should be a nice, easy way to do that. Thank you ever so much for joining us. Thank you to Ollie for being my secret squirrel in the background, for sending over that question. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Cheerio, guys.